No, you're actually making me think here because I'm literally thinking in my head as I ask you this question. You're making me think introspectively a bit. Like when you think about people, when you realize like, okay, you can respect my boundaries, right? And I don't have to like be around you 24/7, but you respect that. Do you see that as like the peak of what you think would be a respectful relationship to you?
Definitely, it's really important.
Mm.
And I think I've touched on this before, but like I used to be a people pleaser, and I used to be so scared with setting boundaries, especially in romantic relationships. And when someone is confident in what you share and sees you for who you are and isn't threatened by you having a separate life aside of them, there is that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't know, that's just a different type of respect that I appreciate,
Mm-hmm.
especially going through everything I've gone through in my life. Nothing beats that. That
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I think accepting boundaries in relationships and having trust, like that's stuff that is pretty powerful and pretty important.
That is a thing I'm thinking because it is a thing sometimes to think about as like is not just for myself the peak I see for myself, but the peak of what I see for the people around me, right? Like we don't actually really think about that or ask ourselves that because that actually ends up being very integral on our own growth as well. So if you think about it, and I say this because for some people, I should say, having friends who just accept them for this specific part of them
Hmm.
is a peak thing. They don't care if that friend like oversteps their boundary per se. They just accept that as a norm and that's just life, right? They can accept that. So that's literally a peak for them. So I try to catch myself sometimes on the things that I see as a peak, right? And it is a good thing to catch up like, okay, is this here a peak for per se or is this something that I've accepted? And it's hard to kind of like stretch that boundary
Hmm.
of being respectful and like understanding like this truly is a peak and find that boundary between that and of like okay is this just a peak that I've set for myself as well, right?
Yeah. And I think, like, I don't know, I feel like for some reason you have like friends that you've known for a very long time. So
Mm-hmm.
even for you, you probably have had to set boundaries that you've never had to set before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have those people around you, still after you setting those boundaries and changing your life and how you are as a person, that speaks volumes. And that's how you know as well that you have real ones around you
Yeah.
who genuinely love you and respect you as a person. And that's important for everyone listening. Like, what happens when you set boundaries with people in your life? How do they
Mm.
react? Um, are they mad because they don't have you're not giving your light to them as often as they want, or are they respecting it and finding themselves as you separate yourself?
And like the thing too I'm realizing too with friends and like when I look at my own friendships and my friend groups and the people I have in my life to this day that I could call a friend that I met like 10 years ago or whatever, right? Shoot, some of them 15 years ago. But like the point is when I think about it, it's like, and at the end of the day, going back to what I was saying earlier as well, it's like we had this vision of being friends forever because we visualize ourselves growing as individuals together in a certain way. And it's just, okay, is this person now continuing that end of the, I guess, quote unquote agreement, essentially, right? Like the unspoken agreement of us growing together and like growing
Mhm.
as individuals. Have they continued to do that? Or have they put themselves in a position where they see themselves as peaked?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're with someone, it's like, okay, you now visualize yourself as peaked. I don't see myself as peaked. I want to see you go higher, but I may have to accept those boundaries. I have to accept that that's you and where you want to be. And it's not that there has to be an animosity between us,
Mhm.
but we know when we're forcing relationships sometimes. We know when it's just the mind, the body wants what it wants, and when you're gonna be around people who are on that wavelength more over time as you grow, and those are gonna be people you start to grow relationships with as well, and that is perfectly fine. That is life. That's acceptable.
Yeah, that's hard. I definitely struggle with like ending friendships, and it's not an easy thing, especially for a female. I feel like as you get older, it's really hard to
Yeah.
find female friends that genuinely, you know, love and respect you and care for you, and it's just genuine. Um,
Thing is, I don't in I guess I go with that. Like, and I feel like I say this because I feel like you're similar in this kind of sense with it. Is I don't believe even myself. I'm someone who ends relationships, but people will end relationships because they see where I am, like what I'm doing. So I may not want to, and I think it goes for yourself probably as well, where it's just like I may not want to talk with this person every day. I may not want to do that, right?
yeah,
But I still appreciate who you are, and I'll still care about you, right? It's just how I'm is different. But if I should say me now doing that, where I don't talk to you much, but I still appreciate you. If that's not enough for you, you're probably gonna end the friendship with me,
yeah,
and I'm okay with that. I've accepted that that's probably gonna be a thing, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, I would still want to be in a place where something could happen, and I'm gonna want to message you or call you and be like, "Hey, yo, funny, this happened." And if that's once every 6 months, once every year, once every 5 years, I want to be able to still have that, and I feel like that's okay. I don't need to end a friendship to me. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think we all have a different life story. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but a lot of my friends are married with kids. They just have different priorities in life, and I could definitely be that person where it's like, oh my God, like you're not making me a priority. But no, when they reach out to me, if they're going through something, I'm still the same Benita. Like that will never change. As soon as we have a friendship, relationship, some type of, you know, relationship, I will be there no matter
Yeah.
what. And I think that's important.
It's so great, and it's like there's so much things where we don't realize it or get it until we're in that position. Like I know myself, I used to before I ever had a relationship. I had friends where I'd be like, "Yo, like why don't you like you're putting so much like focus here, like what's going on?" And then you get when you're like, oh, "Okay, I get it." And then afterwards, like as I grow in certain places, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I get this more." And it's like it is sometimes hard to fully fathom when you don't experience something, but it's like okay, we all kind of end up having to catch ourselves of having to be like, okay, let me fathom and respect that a bit. Yeah, because that happens.
I think with relationships, though, I've realized is that it's really hard for me to balance. And the number one fear that I have when it comes to being in a relationship is losing myself. And I think a lot of people, like especially growing up European and Portuguese household, my mom didn't have friends. She had, you know, sister-in-laws and cousins and aunts and uncles, and we had a really big family. So my mom didn't have friends, and she was always with my dad and always, always with family. So growing up, that's what I seen. And then I realized that I don't think, for me personally, I don't feel like it's healthy being with someone every day. Obviously, if you're living with them, it's different. But I think it's really important to have somewhat not a separate life, but like other things going for you, where you're spending time with family without that person, and you're spending time with your friends without that person, and you're spending time with them. I feel like for me, I've lost myself in a lot of my relationships, and I don't like that because I love me. And then I think when people when people are in a long-term relationship, they mold into one person, and then things get boring because you essentially become either, I don't know, one person or the other, and then you become one personality.
I'll tell you, like myself experiencing kind of both ends of the spectrum. When you're with someone, I feel like that you just don't like that. You sometimes you just internally feel like you're with the right person,
Yeah.
where you will just not feel like you're losing yourself. There's a level of it though too, where it's like you end up having to like think introspectively too of like, okay, this is new me a little bit, but for them like 90% of it, it is that internal feeling of like, I could be with this person every day, and I don't feel like that.
How do you differentiate that
It's just this.
for the people?
I find for myself, it was literally just an internal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, at least just going off my own personal experience,
Yeah.
if you feel like you're losing yourself with someone, that is literally not the person for you. And there's going to be little things that your body, your mind, your soul is going to be telling you of like, this ain't it. And you kind of have to listen to it.
But I feel like some people have like different attachment styles,
Mm-hmm.
right? So maybe you're not losing yourself, but there's people that have different attachment styles. So people like to message a lot, and some people like to, hold back and just kind of do their own
Yeah.
thing and message here and there or see them here and there. But it might not be like that you're losing yourself. It's just like the attachment styles are different.
And I find that it's possible. Here's the thing too, is you could have, and I've had this happen, where you could have the exact, like pretty much similar love languages and still feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you're just not, and like it's just not right. There's just something that's just not right that's making you feel like you're losing yourself. And there is still a bit, because that's why I still say it's like 90%, because there's still going to be a bit where it's just like, am I a person who just likes to be alone? Am I a person who likes to be around family more? Like, what do I truly like value a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a bit of that comes into play, where it's just like, you have to kind of balance that too. But a lot of it is just you are internally gonna feel like, I'm losing myself, and it's just this little feeling that's in you.
Yeah.